everyone, and welcome back to the Empowered to Lead podcast. I'm so glad that you have joined us again this week. We take time to talk to and about our role as group practice owners, mostly in Canada. And we go through different conversations with different group practice owners, but also people who support us and help us make our businesses run. And so I'm very excited to have Tedi Bezna join us here today. Tedi has done Ask Me Anything already for us, and how do we help websites as group practice owners. And then we have a workshop coming up, but really just wanted to dig in. I've had Tedi and Searchlight Digital supporting my website and some advertising in the last little bit, and just really been impressed by their intentionality, the work that they've done, what they're looking at. Feels very practical as opposed to just like, oh, we can help your SEO grow. But it feels like it actually is doing that. And so I'm excited to learn a little bit more about you, Tedi, and some of your business and just leadership from another perspective too. So tell me a little bit about you and your business and what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for having me. It's always such a pleasure to speak and to provide hopefully valuable information to you and your community. So thank you for having me. Yeah, my name is Tedi. I'm the founder of Searchlight Digital. We're an all-women, all-Canadian search marketing agency. And so we specialize and work a lot with people in the sort of health and wellness space. So a lot of counselors, therapists, people who are in, running multidisciplinary practices as well. But we really focus, especially now with the changing search landscape, of human-centered SEO in an AI world, and really making sure that we can help service providers, and particularly people in the mental health space, connect with their ideal clients through search. So we approach that in a couple different ways, certainly through website optimization, Google Ads, content strategy, but really seeing SEO as a way to build connections and to serve your potential clients. So we've had the honor of supporting, at this point, well over 125 practices or solo counselors and therapists. So we have a lot of experience working in particular with group practices and helping people grow in an ever-changing search landscape.
How long have you had your business going?
So we just passed 8 years in January.
Okay.
So, yes, I started in a very similar fashion to, I think, a lot of the people that we work with in group practices. I started solo as a freelancer, and I always joke that I sort of Frankensteined the team together, where I was like, oh, I need a writer, I need a marketing assistant, I need someone who's going to help me answer my emails. And now we're a team of 30 across the country. So we've been growing again over the last 8 years. So it's been a busy and full time.
Yeah. So one of the questions that I ask everybody is, how would you describe yourself as a leader? So you, in that question, so you said you kind of Frankensteined your group together. Did you ever think you were a leader, or have you grown into that role?
Yeah, I mean, I think leadership and being a sort of a boss, and not in the marketing slang, internet way, but genuinely having full-time employees, having a team and leadership has been something that I've really been focusing on, in particular in the last year. I think coming from freelancer and sort of cobbling things together, feeling like, oh yeah, we're just like a team all coming together. I've really realized in the last year that means that I'm the leader on this shit. We never outrun our own mindset work. And so that has been my latest hurdle to climb. But as a leader, I think, as a very millennial person, I see myself in sort of two capacities. One, I like to think of myself as sort of the umbrella from the storm. I want to protect my team and keep them dry and keep them happy and protect them from the elements of, the ups and downs, the nature of running a business. I want to take that on so that they can really dive into the things that they're passionate about and skilled, and so that they can really thrive in working with our clients and put all their focus and their energy there. And so as an extension of that, I see myself almost like, forever making sure that everyone has what they need, the resource allocation. I'm the supporter of our entire team to make sure, do you have the tools? Do you have the time? Do you have the information that you need to be successful in your role and get whatever it is that's on your plate done? So I see myself as a protector and a supporter of my team.
I'm kind of going off some of the questions that we had said we might talk about, but that kind of leads me quite often when I'm working with group practice owners, once you get to about 8 to 10 people on your team, it feels like that umbrella role is a lot more than it was with just a couple of people. And so how do you take care of yourself as a leader as you're caring for them?
That too is something that I've been, working on. I think, in the last 8 years, a lot has happened in life in general. In those 8 years, I also had my 2 daughters within, kind of back-to-back 14 months apart. And so the last sort of decade of my life has been growing the business, making sure that my team has what they need, starting and growing a family, taking care of children. And so over the last sort of 6 to 8 months, I've now taken a look and thought, okay, I think it's time to look inward and start taking care of myself. So that has only been in the last, relatively short amount of time that I've started really prioritizing that. And, some of it is for my own reasons of wanting to, thrive and enjoy what I'm doing. But especially when you're the leader, everything else in a way does rely on you. If I'm burnt out and running ragged and, the empty cup, how is that going to translate to the success of my team and our organization? So I've been taking that more seriously, focusing on, exercise. I've been getting really big into closing the stress cycle at the end of each day. So, when you're sitting at your desk, you're getting the emails, you're bouncing from one thing to another. And at the end of the day, taking, 15, 30 minutes to go on my walking pad. I got my walking pad right next to my desk. So I trying to really kind of take that time, come down. I've been focusing lately too. I want to find more creative things, in the sort of search marketing. I'm in spreadsheets and numbers and data, which I love. And that's very much how my brain works. But I'm like, I think it's time to activate the brain in different ways. So even reading puzzles, stuff like that sort of tickles the troubleshooting without the stress. I've been trying to start feeding into myself a little.
I usually try to do a puzzle every Christmas. And I have a friend who does puzzles all year long. And so I've got one sitting waiting for me to get started. And it's so funny, right? You can all of a sudden you look up and it's been an hour and you actually were not thinking about work or anything like that. And it is creative because using a different part of your brain. At least for me, when I think creativity, you got to go do art or play or something like that. So yeah, being creative in imagining what that looks like to use your brain in a different way and take care of yourself in a different way.
Yeah, trying.
Yes.
Forever.
Yeah. You said a little bit about how your business runs and some of that perspective of all women and helping our industry really. What is it that doing that helps you as help people in our field? That question is not coming out very clearly. I'm going to read the question that I posed to you, and that might be a little more straightforward. Tell us a little bit more about the work that you do, especially as it relates to group practice owners and mental health professionals. One of the things that I think stood out, even just when you were describing it earlier, but also in that Ask Me Anything, you had a really good way of explaining, if people are going to do a Google search, it's just kind of like a short, quick question, and then AI search is more personal. And I think a lot of times we have been afraid of AI, but the way you framed it is it actually helps us attract our ideal client. So tell me a little bit more about that with Searchlight Digital. How does that help us attract our ideal clients?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, the kind of the advantage and the beauty of group practices in particular is that often you have greater capacity and greater diversity in the ways that you can support people. You'll often have, a team of therapists who have each their own areas of expertise and their specialties. And so a lot of the work that we do is really making sure that the content on a practice's website is clear and resonates with their ideal clients based on either, demographics, the area of expertise, the modality, whatever that might look like. And it's interesting because similar in a sense to my journey, oftentimes when we're working with group practices, it starts with one person who's independently really successful. They're fully booked. And so they say, okay, I'd like to have essentially my own referral that I can send my overflow to. And they often start building their practice that way. And so I won't call it Frankensteining, but in a way, we just need one person here, and then maybe we need some entry service and bringing people in. So oftentimes when we're brought into someone's website, it's very still focused on the original person who now has started the practice owner. And so part of our work is making sure that it is team-centric versus an individual, because we don't want, the whole point of starting a group practice is that you don't want everything relying just on you. You want it to be about the impact that you can make and how you support people versus you as, one person. So making sure that we have that service first mindset and making it clear that it's a team, that's super helpful. And then starting to dive really deep on, again, who are those ideal clients? Who are those people that you can support best? And making sure that our content is really resonant and also very clear. I think this is something that is forever a balance to be struck is, in particular with something like therapy. It is deeply personal. It is very personality driven. It's about making sure that people click and get to know you. But sometimes I find we'll often come in and provide a layer of clarity, because when we're talking from our own language, it's, transform your life with, new reflections. And it's like, well, what does that mean? Okay, yes. We're talking about life transitions, or we're talking about, ADHD executive functioning therapy. So finding that balance between what is someone going to type in to find your offering and to find your service, and making sure that there's a match between that so that people can find you, while also making sure that your content speaks deeply to the heart of the person that that you can help the best. And I think counseling and therapy in particular has such a unique advantage, because other businesses would have to do tons of research into understanding what are the motivations of my ideal client, what are fears and concerns. You have that on, in your intake form. We want to use to make people feel heard and understood. And so making sure that content exists specifically on the website is a really great way of showing up in these AI searches in particular, because our AIs know so much about us. I use ChatGPT, I use Gemini, and oftentimes I'll be talking about, one thing, and it will bring up something that I spoke about 10 chats ago. So it knows us really well. And so if I was to go into Google and say, counselor near me, that's going to give me very different responses than if I'm talking to my ChatGPT saying, I'm, a mom of 2, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm busy and overwhelmed, I need virtual weekend availability for a counselor who specializes in working with entrepreneurial moms. If you're that therapist, does your website say that? Does it make that clear? ChatGPT is not going to guess. Gemma is not going to guess. Users aren't going to guess. We have to be clear. And a lot of people, again, know very deeply who their ideal client is, who they can serve best. And so making sure that we incorporate that and have that content exist on the site in the, technically structured, all the nerdy backend kind of things, making sure that it's properly added to the site is a huge advantage. And again, a great first touch point that is very much an extension of that in-person and personal experience that the counselors and therapists provide.
One of the things when I start working with someone, whether they're starting a group practice or established, is come back and say, who is your ideal client? Because that does shift, or people feel lost like you described earlier. So I started my private practice and I filled up. So I know who my ideal client is. I don't know who my group practice's ideal client is. And now I bring on these 8 other people and they all want to work with somebody different. How do I incorporate that? So for us, I would start with the group practice owner. What are your values? What are you wanting to accomplish? Who do you want to serve? And then, so I'm checking with you to see if this is right or not. And then overall, the website is speaking to that person. And then have your therapist build their ideal client, and on their bio, how do they speak to the person that they want to work with? Does that create conflict when somebody comes to you and says, okay, we've got this overall ideal client, but these other people have theirs? How do you make that work in symmetry?
Yeah, well, when I look at a website and type of content that we have, I sort of look at it in kind of layers or chunks. And so we have sort of the main overarching primary pages, like your homepage and your about page and FAQs, things like that. And that's where we generally see the overarching theme of the practice. Some people are highly multidisciplinary. Others, they have an area of specialty like, trauma or grief or couples counseling. Then we move into the service pages where we get into, again, it could be modality. So if we have something that's, relationship and couples counseling, then we have a page for the Gottman method or infidelity, trauma, betrayal trauma, things like that are much more niche. From there, we link to the team member pages. And so that's where people can share their own unique, story or their insights, their preferences. So I like having those different layers in particular, because when you have a team, things also sometimes shift. The 8 people that you have right now might not be the same 8 people that you have 2 years from now. We want to preserve certain aspects of the site that can remain relatively person neutral. It's not all hinged on, that one team member that supports that or provides that service. So it allows for a level of individualization and for people to bring their, unique qualifications and their unique approaches, while still making sure that as the team ebbs, flows, expands, contracts, that you still have helpful, relevant content on the site. So those are sort of the 3 layers that I look at. I'll also encourage people to write blog content. So if you have individual members who have a unique perspective or have their story to share, or a particular type of person that they feel that they can support, blog content is a really great place to put that, so that it leads back to that individual, but also supports the site's top authorities.
I love it when we speak the same language. Those are things that I keep trying to tell people, and they find it hard to get, like, how do I ask someone to write a blog? They don't want to do that, but it feeds so much credibility and for searches, but also when your client lands on your site, they see me and they know me, and there's another level of that know, and trust. What's a common misconception or mistake that you see practice owners making when they come to you?
I think, again, some of it does come from the growing pains of, well, who am I and who are we as a practice, and making that clear and differentiating. Some of the misconceptions, I think a lot of times people think, well, I have my site and that's, maybe enough. Having all of their services just listed on one page. I think too, one of the big things that we often will provide feedback on from a content perspective is, are you talking about yourself or are you talking about your ideal client? And it's, again, such a balance, and it comes down to where we are on the site, but we want to make sure that we're building that trust. And I think that's really where a lot of, practice owners and individual therapists start with is, I want people to know that I'm qualified. I want people to know my approach and my tone of voice and how I sound so that we can connect. But oftentimes what I'll see is some of these websites sort of looking like a resume. And so I'll go on and I'll say, okay, here's your credentials and here's what you do. But what about me? Do you get me? Have you experienced or, do you have, a level of expertise in the thing that I'm struggling with? And so we try to flip it to say, you know what, your about page, your team member page is a perfect place to list all of your qualifications. But when someone lands on your site, they should say, I'm in the right place. This is what I'm looking for right away. Even the moment they land on your website, they should know, okay, I'm looking for, trauma therapy in downtown Vancouver, BC. Perfect. Great. Let me continue. We should be speaking to, again, the heart of the person. What was happening to them 15 minutes before making that Google search? What made them finally say, today's the day and I've had enough and I'm seeking support? Was it that they had an argument with their partner, or they find themselves in these cycles that they can't break out of? We want to make sure that when they come to the website, they feel almost a sigh of relief that it's like, oh, they understand, they get it. Perfect. Let me then, take that next step. Let me get my questions answered. And some of that might be around qualifications or what you're proud of. It goes from clarity, personalization, and then trust and authority building.
Yeah. And keep coming back to what does that client want to know? Because I was doing some coaching with somebody and it was like, your bio page is all about your credentials and like maybe you don't need that. But as we flesh that out, actually her ideal client wants to know, for that therapist wants to know all the credentials because they want to trust the training based on the culture that they're in. And so, for some people, it might be that. For a lot of us, it's not. But we also worked pretty hard to get that degree. So you want to show it somewhere, too.
We ignore that as making sure what, because, again, therapy and counseling in particular, it's about the client. It's about your patient. And so we make sure that, again, our website is an extension of that in-person experience that they're going to have with you. And, we have a lot of people, and I've seen share their personal experience of why they connect so deeply with this particular, topic or modality, and kind of share what makes that, so special and important to them. And they do bring themselves. But it's in a way that fosters, again, that connection and that trust building. And your mileage will vary based on, who you're working with, what the style is. I mean, we work with, again, a really wide range of practices. We work with some people who also do things with controlled substances. Like there's things where you absolutely need credentials. He is very, high. So it totally depends. But and in particular with some modality pages, if you have a particular designation, Gottman is, top of mind, but that would relate then very directly to what that person is looking for. But I like what you said is what is that person wondering? What questions do they have? And answering those for people to start building that relationship.
So you are a business owner who created something, to help people with their websites. Did you always mean it, our language? As you were talking here, you could easily be a therapist or a group practice owner. I mean, you got to have the training and all of that stuff, but you are speaking our language. Is that something you started your business thinking, I want to help counselors? Or did it just kind of are we your ideal client? I guess would be one of the questions.
Well, when I started, so I'm in a family of small business owners. So my dad owned pet stores. My grandpa had a chain of dry cleaners. My grandma owned a bookstore. And once I started gaining the knowledge that I had around SEO and Google Ads and things like that, I really had a heart for helping people who were passionate about what they do and their business and the impact that they make on their teams and communities, and knowing how valuable this type of information was. And also how easy and within the industry, how many people are taking advantage of small business owners, helpers and healers, people who just see them as a target market to target and are just sort of coming into as sort of, So my heart has always been in supporting, in particular, small businesses, service providers, people who I know can really benefit from this. And because I always forget, I need to look it up, which side of the brain, the spreadsheets and the analytics, my step orderliness is. I really found that I work well with people who I sort of put under the umbrella of helpers, healers, and creatives. So people whose brains do not work in the way mine do, who reject spreadsheets, who are not interested in maintaining a website or, being an accountant or a coder or any of the things that you start to need to be when you start your business. And so I think it was just a natural attraction of the yin yang of being a little bit more analytical, but really respecting and deeply seeing the value in the work that these helpers and healers and creatives do, and wanting to support them, because I saw how impactful it would be to be able to reach the right people who need their help the most. And so sort of coming in and saying, how can I, again, be that foundation upon which you can flourish, to not stifle that creativity and that connection and that, way of embodying their business and their values, but to make sure that we have those fundamentals and foundational pieces so that they can. So it's been a wonderful happenstance that, we've grown and have built, a reputation in the health and wellness space, and in particular with therapists in BC. We love our therapy clients. It's a joy working. And again, it's a really fun collaboration of the two sides.
You can work across the country though.
We do. We work internationally. Yeah. So we work North America. We've worked with people in Australia and the UK as well. So we're global.
Yeah. For those in Ontario who are listening and you just said BC, is like, no, you're not just BC.
Well, I know we work with everyone. We work with counselors, I believe in almost every province at this point, but BC and Ontario, just by virtue of population, is where we have a lot of our. Yeah.
What's something you wish group practice owners knew or understood earlier in their journey in this role?
I think, one of the things that I really respect for so many of these group practice owners is how dedicated and passionate they are about supporting their teams and wanting to get them booked up and really taking that responsibility so seriously. And so I would say, kind of tying back to some of the additional content that we were talking about, is like starting as you mean to go, like starting the SEO maybe earlier than you might think. And when you're even starting to think about growing your practice, building out those dedicated service pages, starting to take a look at the copy to decenter yourself a little bit, because that's going to make that transition a lot easier to make it so that you're not having to completely rebrand. I know not everybody kind of starts out this way, but if you're thinking that potentially you would like to grow to a group practice, choose something that's not your name, because that also makes to maybe not about, you specifically. But yeah, really laying that foundation for future growth. That's going to be super helpful. And also to tapping your team and positioning them to support the website in their own way. I know we'd spoken briefly about like, well, how do I ask my team to write a blog? When we position it as this is a great way to increase your own visibility and to establish your expertise and your authority, and providing guidance, I think, as well. So it's not just write me a blog about anything. We could say, here's our service pages. This is what your expertise is in. What's a common question that you get from your clients, or what's a common hesitation or concern, or what's a pattern that you're seeing? Kind of working with them and not being afraid to say to the team, here's how we can all work together to help support you.
That resonates. That's something that I think a lot of us feel stuck in how to do. So that was perfect the way you shared that. I had another question and now it's gone. So let's say you're a group practice owner. You've been doing this for a couple of years, and all that excitement over getting started and is starting to wear off, and just the continuity and maintaining your business is there now. And now you take a step back and you're like, oh crap, I need to look at my website because it worked well 2 years ago and I don't really like this or this or this about it. What would be one thing that they could start with? And when would they need to come? When would you suggest they come to you in that stage of ownership? So they've got it, they're not getting started. How would they know that it's time to go, hey, Tedi, I need some support?
Yeah, I mean, usually people will come to us when they are, oftentimes is when they're having a struggle of some sort of, I'm not getting the traffic, I'm not booking up my team. I'm not able to, fill people in the way that I would like to. So that's usually the first kind of trigger, or there's been some kind of shift or change in practice of we now offer more services, or our focus has changed, or our team has grown and we'd, like to, continue sort of our momentum. So usually that's what sort of prompts people. I always say when it comes to SEO, the earlier the better. Some people will come to us before their website is built. And it's sort of the when's the best time to plant a tree kind of thing. It's like 20 years ago or today. So depending on what you've been able to do with your site, coming in and getting that SEO support, whether it's just a second set of eyes to make sure that everything is working as it should, or going much more deeply and saying, okay, what do we need to build? What currently exists? If it's possible, if you already have, and I would say, walking away from this, the SEO in me wouldn't forgive myself if I didn't mention, make sure you have Google Analytics and Google Search Console on your site, because data is so powerful. And things that we'll often, talk about with new clients is just a lack of knowledge around what is the current situation. How many people are we getting to our website? Is it converting? Maybe you have a Psychology Today profile or you're posting on Instagram and you don't really know what's working. And so having that data, having some of that keyword information from Google can be super valuable, and just seeing where are we starting from, and then being able to identify what are the weak points of, we thought that, this is one of our areas of expertise and we're not showing up for it anywhere. Okay, great. Now we know that this is something that we need to dig into more. It can also help to uncover, I've worked with people even just on a 1-hour consultation where we realized that like half their website wasn't even indexing or showing up in Google search. It's wondering why nobody was booking that service. And so, small things like that can make a really big impact. So having some sense of what your current state is super valuable. And I've said it before, I'll say it again, but getting those services on their own pages is so important, because especially as your team grows, you want to make sure that you're able to align your team members with their areas of expertise. And people would, will certainly have more than one, but being able to grow your services and your offerings with your team, having those service pages is key. And also because people are looking for different information based on the kind of, offering, whether again, modality, area of expertise. If I'm looking for couples counseling, I have very different questions than someone who is looking for trauma counseling or ADHD executive functioning counseling or art therapy or children, each of those own set of questions, their own, struggles, things that are prompting them to seek support. And so to, again, have this be an extension of service and connection, you need to start to narrow in and clarify. So those are the two kind of foundational first steps, is getting a sense of where you are now, and also making your website clear and separated in that sense for who you want to support.
I think a lot too, in our work together in the fall, I think one thing that stood out was like, if we're going to start doing, you didn't even actually let me start with Google Ads until we made sure that the website, because if you're going to pay for Facebook ads or Google ads, or you're going to go and market at a doctor's office and say, hey, come visit my website, if it doesn't actually have, here's how we help, or speak that language properly, you're actually wasting money in the long run too, hey?
Yeah, and that's often, the first thing. We always do a SEO and website first strategy when it comes to paid advertising, but so often I'll talk with people who will say, oh, I tried Google Ads in the past and it didn't work. And I'll sort of walk them through and ask them questions like, did you have Google Analytics and conversion tracking set up for your target actions on your site? Well, no. Okay, on your website, did you have, appropriate calls to action and optimized content and making it easy for people to take that next best step? No, I didn't. Okay, so let's work on the thing that will last forever on your site, which is that SEO optimization. The ultimate goal is, of course, to have people just coming to your site because it's a match for what they're searching. And then to use ads as sort of gasoline, where it's like, once we have that kindling going and we want to get, bigger fire, then we can pour people on top. But especially when you're paying for every person to come to your website, you want to make sure that it is fast and responsive and helpful and, optimized for conversions and for people coming from those ads. So you see your performance improve on both sides by focusing on the website first.
Yeah. So we're going to start wrapping up. Sounds like a session, but if people were to say, I want to work with Tedi, what do you do? So we've talked a lot about the SEO side, but you also mentioned like an hour consult. What's the range and how can you support group practice owners?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a couple different options. So sort of a good starting point often is having what we call a pick my brain call. So it's 60 minutes with me and we go over your website in real time, just kind of dissecting and seeing what's the current state, what do we have, what do we need. Sometimes we'll do multiple sessions and make improvements in real time. I'll get into the back end of your website and add things. So it's a really great sort of low commitment way. And especially for those who want to learn for themselves and who are, saying, I want to take this knowledge and run with it and expand upon it. It's a really great way to, again, get those questions answered, pick my brain, get feedback on anything that you've currently been doing. So we can always start with a 1-hour call. We also do one-time projects. That's another thing that a lot of people ask us is like, well, do I have to work with, Searchlight in particular on an ongoing basis? Nope. We also have one-time projects, and those are usually for foundational on-site optimizations, where if you've never done anything before, we'll come in and make sure all foundational pieces are put together. We also have support blocks where you can pre-purchase hours of support and we make a custom plan. And then what we also primarily help with is that ongoing support for people who have growing practices, who want to make sure that someone is keeping an eye on the organic or the paid side of things. We come up with really, holistic, integrated and customized approaches, really specializing in that done for you SEO. There's a lot of, and I'm a huge proponent of education. I'm an educator in so many ways. But really where we shine is coming in and taking it off your plate, having it be one less thing on your to-do list so that group practice owners can get back to the thing that they love and do best and are passionate about, knowing that they have a trusted partner who has come in and has, again, taken this off of their plate. So, we really focus on integrity, transparency, and empowerment. We want people to feel informed but not overwhelmed, and to really feel like they are part of the process and that we have that relationship with them. It's not just sending a spreadsheet once a month and there you go, there's your SEO services. We've really built our business and our agency to make sure that people feel supported and heard and that we're available to help and to guide.
And I can testify that those spreadsheets make sense too. It's not just, how sometimes I have worked with other people and you get this list, but I don't actually know what that means or what you're asking me to do. And so, highly recommend Tedi and her team. And thank you for taking time to be here and to answer some of these questions, and look forward to having you join us in other ways too. And so put a little plug in there, April 15th. Tedi's going to be joining us to do a webinar on how to help yourself be found in the age of AI as a group practice owner. And so excited for that. And thank you so much. It was good to have you here.
Having me.
All right. And for those who are listening, would love to have a 5-star review if you have enjoyed this. And we will include a link to Searchlight as well in the show notes so that you can have a conversation with them if you feel like this is something that your business needs in order to move forward. Have a great day. Thanks for hanging out with me on Empowered to Lead, the therapist practice. If you're ready for deeper support, I'd love to see you inside the Group Practice Connection, my monthly membership where Canadian therapists like you get coaching, community, and the tools to build a business that actually supports your life. You can check it out at grouppracticenetwork.ca. We're building something great here, and I'm so glad you're a part of it.